Dave is angry because he knew all along he didn't know who this person was, this person who called herself Ramona. And he's very angry that he's been dragged into this, not because he wasn't willing to help her, but because it's putting the lives of his family in danger. Everyone was almost murdered. And it's like, I will help you till the ends of the earth. I will go to hell and back. And this is what he tells her. I will go to hell and back for you. But you can't keep lying to me. Because it's not because I'm so butthurt that you are lying to me. It's because the truth will set you free. So I'm spinning my wheels here trying to help you if I don't even know what game we're playing. So she breaks down and she starts telling him all kinds of things. Hello, how are you? Welcome to my channel. My name is Denise. I'm going to tell you guys a story today that is by far the strangest story I've ever heard in my life. And the reason I'm telling you this story today is because I have discussed many times to you about my desire to do a series on the actual darkness that is ruling and reigning in Hollywood. But I think that in order to do that, I need to kind of lay the groundwork for how dark I think this world really is and give you a specific example of how weird the world really is before we can actually delve into some of the stuff going on in Hollywood, because we need to make sure that we're all on the same playing field. Now, this story is exceedingly strange, and it is going to ask you to go to realms and to places that you may never have considered before. Now, if you are a person who is open to the idea of spiritual warfare and the fact that there is a God and there is a devil, much of this story will not necessarily surprise you as far as what's going on in spiritual realm. But if you are a person that feels like the world is a certain way and what you can see is what there is and what you can't see, it doesn't exist, then this story is really going to tax you in a lot of ways. I will say this story is going to discuss a lot of dark themes. Now, we're not going to go into detail on what some of that darkness is, but we will be mentioning things that are difficult and hard to wrap our heads around. And for that reason, if you have little kids around, or if you have people who are sensitive to the subject matter of spiritual warfare, this might not be an episode to have around with them. Now, I'm going to tell you, this story is wild, intensely interesting, and the connections and the conclusions to this entire story are unbelievably orchestrated by a God who wants to redeem the lost. And I mean, it gives me chills just to think about where we're going to go in this story. Where it begins and where it ends is unbelievable. But it's also a story that is going to challenge us on history we thought we knew, challenge us on realities we thought we believed in. It is a challenging story, but it is intensely, intensely interesting. Now, before we get into the story, I just want to give credit where credit is due. This story was first introduced to me. My sister sent me this podcast, and it is from the Almost False podcast. Pastor Dave Bryan was interviewed, and he tells his story in a very long form interview style. It's a 2-hour, 20-minute podcast. Intensely interesting. And I will do my best to give you as much information as I can without taking it 2 hours and 20 minutes. But if you love this story or want to find out all about it or hear it from the actual person that this happened to, then I would implore you to go to the Almost False podcast channel and listen to the whole story there. There's also a book that was written about it. Pastor Dave wrote a book about it, so you can also read that if you want even more detail. All right, it is a very detailed story. It's an amazing story. I want to jump right into it. This story is particularly interesting for us because it deals with the actual death of the infamous character Anton LaVey. Anton LaVey is often, he was called the Black Pope in the media. He was the author of the Satanic Bible, but he was also, and I think this is even more chilling, the acolyte to Aleister Crowley. And if you know anything about Aleister Crowley, he was known as the most evil man in the world. He was banned from the UK. He wrote book after book after book about sex magic and the occult. A truly diabolical, evil, frighteningly demonic, ruled by the devil man. Horrible, horrible man who is the author of an incredible amount of evil. Well, his little mentoree was Anton LaVey. Anton LaVey was an exceedingly evil man in his own right. But what's frightening about him is that there were realms that legitimized his evilness. And while you can Google, and AI will tell you this isn't true, it is true that Anton LaVey pioneered the programs for the Pentagon and for the CIA with their remote viewing programs, in which they would astral project to find out what was going on, and try to solve crimes and things like this. This is well documented. There's all kinds of people who work for the CIA who are working in the occult, who are mediums, and who try to get cases solved by, going and looking and finding and remote viewing. Well, Anton LaVey was the pioneer to that program. So a person who was definitely not just dabbling in a little bit of witchcraft and wizardry, all right? A truly evil person. But his death in October 1997 has been shrouded in a lot of mystery. Now, the accepted understanding of his death is that he died of a pulmonary embolism or edema. It was pulmonary edema, and that he died in the hospital on October 29th. But, and this has been confirmed by the Washington Post too, so on his death certificate, it says that he died on October 31st. And there was he died in the hospital of like a heart problem. That's not what actually happened. So what did actually happen? Well, we got to go way back to discover all of the things that had to come into play on that Halloween night for him to die in a very strange way. And his last words were recorded as, oh no, something terrible has gone wrong. And then he died. So what really happened? Pastor Dave was not looking to get involved in anything with the occult. He didn't have some kind of hang up about Satanism. He wasn't curious about what's going on in the world of, the demons. And, some Christians have a real interest and bent towards trying to find out what's going on in the spiritual realm. And they love conspiracy and mystery. That was not Pastor Dave. He had started a church with one objective, and that was to help the needy. That's what he was good at. He was the firehouse chaplain. He went to juvenile detention centers and tried to minister to the kids. If there was a homeless person in the community who needed groceries, who needed a place to stay, his home was open all the time. He and his wife were incredibly compassionate people, and that was their work. In the community, it was find a need and meet it, find a hurt and heal it. That was their motto, and that's what they were doing, and they were really good at it. Anybody in the community who had a problem, go to Pastor Dave. He will help you solve the problem. And that was how he was obeying the command from God in his life. What's interesting is he had chosen a verse as his mission statement that talked about helping the orphans and the widows. But the second part of that verse was to help deliver those from the bondage of darkness. And he wasn't really paying attention to that second part of the verse. It was just help the widows and orphans. That seemed like a big enough task, and he was really doing a good job at it. He had a friend in his life who had been a mentor to his dad. And this friend was a missionary, and he was out doing things in Borneo and Papua New Guinea and, doing all kinds of things in all of these other regions of the world that are really steeped in all kinds of spiritual demonic attack. Well, he had come and he was talking to Dave, and he said, the Lord put on my heart that this is a book that you need to read, and you need to read it because you are going to be dealing with some real darkness from the devil. And this book is going to be an important tool for you, and you need to read it. And Pastor Dave says he looked at the book, and it was all about Satanism and these rituals and the darkness and demonic stuff. And he's like, I don't think so. It just was that's weird. I don't want that in my head. Thanks for the book, but no. And so he just was like, thanks. And this missionary friend of his went on his way, but he would call Pastor Dave twice a year and be like, have you read the book? And this went on for 8 years. The guy would keep calling, have you read the book? Have you read the book? Have you read the book? And Dave's like, no, and I'm not going to. I'm not into that. It was, I guess thanks. And he says he would have thrown the book away, except for the fact that this guy was a great friend of the family's. He was somebody that Pastor Dave had a lot of respect for. So out of respect for the guy, he kept the book, but he was not going to read that weirdness. Well, finally, the guy was back in the States, and he comes to Pastor Dave and he says, you were in rebellion. I was given a message that you need to read that book. I've told you on and on to read the book, and you're not doing it. And a week from now, you are going to be meeting with the devil. So if I were you, I'd get on it. And Pastor Dave was like, okay, he felt very rebuked by it. And so he was willing to read the book, but only because some stuff had been happening in his life that had opened up in his mind the possibility that the world was a lot weirder than he thought it had been. And this friend of his who had given him the book had been telling him that the world is a lot weirder than you think it is. So you need to embrace the fact that you don't know what's going on and actually get some knowledge under your belt, because you're going to need it. Pastor Dave had been helping out. Every Monday night, he would go to the juvenile detention center in his town, and he would talk to the kids and minister to the kids and kind of just try to be like a paternal figure to them, like a pastor friend. And he would give talks and stuff on Monday nights. And so he had been at the detention center and had met this one child. And this boy was in an absolute paralyzing situation. He had been raised in a satanic family. He had been involved in all kinds of satanic ritual as a child, and he was desperately wanting to get out, but not sure what to do. And anyway, in this struggle against all of these demonic entities, the boy ends up dying. And it was a really, really tragic situation. And Pastor Dave felt very ill-equipped to help him. He didn't really know what was going on with this boy. But that had been the first thing that happened at the detention center that kind of raised his awareness that, it's not always somebody just like, their meds need to be adjusted. Like, there are actual things going on in the world of darkness. But the other thing that really staggered him, and that was an absolute punch to the face, was one night he'd come to the detention center, and there in the foyer, right at the front, at the front desk, was a 14-year-old girl in a plexiglass cage. And he was very put off by this. Like, why are you keeping a child in a cage? Like, please, can we not do better around here? I know federal funds are low, but gosh, do we have to keep kids in cages? So he asked the people at the front desk, what's going on here? And they said, well, we have to put her there. She's a dangerous individual. And he's like, how dangerous can she be? She's 14 years old. And they're like, you can go and talk to her. And he's like, I will. So they open the door to the plexiglass cage, and he sits down and he starts having a conversation with her. And she was very hostile and very cynical and bitter. And he tried to be sweet to her. And, why are you in here, sweetheart? And she's like, I'm not your sweetheart, But you can understand, like, somebody in juvenile detention, they're not looking for your little kindnesses. Just, they've been used and abused their whole life. And she didn't want anything to do with this pastor who was talking to her. Well, he was trying to figure out, why are you in this cage? So he starts out there, and she says, well, I tried to kill my mother with a baseball bat. And the pastor was really taken aback, 14 years old. Why did you why did you try to kill your mother? The girl says, yeah, I tried to kill my mother. I threw her body in the river, and then I don't really know what happened, but I know she's not dead. And the pastor was shocked and trying to keep the conversation going. And he's like, well, why did you hate your mother? Thinking she must have, because why would you try to kill somebody with a baseball bat? And she says, I didn't hate my mother. That had nothing to do with it. I tried to kill her in a Judas ritual. Well, what's a Judas ritual? And that's what he asked her. And she's like, you don't know what a Judas ritual is? I mean, what? And she says, I was part of a coven, and my mother wanted to leave. And a Judas ritual is where you turn against somebody who trusts you, and you kill them and you take their power. And she says that she had decided that they were going to kill her mother, and that's what they attempted to do. They beat her with a baseball bat and threw her body in the river. But against all odds, she wasn't dead. And they didn't really know how she wasn't dead, but she was alive and they knew it. So at this point, Pastor Dave is extremely shaken. I mean, he didn't even know that there were witches. He didn't know there were covens. A Judas ritual. What are you even talking about right now? So he's really getting nervous and feeling like maybe it's time to just sort of end this conversation. It's gone to levels and planes he was not prepared for. So he tells the girl, all right, well, thank you for sharing that. If there's anything that I can do for you, please let me know. I'm a pastor. I'm here every Monday night. And if there's any way that I can minister to you, please let me know. And she's like, yeah, right, whatever. And he's like, no, I mean it. If there's anything I can do. And so she looks at him and she's like, well, there is actually something you could do for me. She leans in and she tries to say it out of view of the camera. And she says in a really low voice, I need you to get me some blood. And he's like, well, are you sick? I mean, I can call medical for you. If there's something that you need, we can get a nurse in here, a doctor. And she's like, no, I don't have a medical reason for needing this blood. And you don't need to be a doctor, but I do need you to get it for me. And he's like, but I need to know why you need that. Like, that's a weird request. You know, that's weird, right? And she says that she eventually reveals to him that she drinks blood, that she is a vampire, and that the reason she's in this plexiglass cage is because she's been attacking people drinking their blood, and they had to lock her up. Well, the pastor's scrambling as fast as he can to the door, gets out, and all the guards and stuff are laughing at him. And he's like, I can't believe you put me in a cage with a vampire. And they're like, you asked for it. You know, you were so sure that you knew that she shouldn't be there. You crawled in that cage yourself. We were watching. We're going to let anything happen to you. But yeah, she's been attacking people, so she's been locked up. Well, this had just blown the lid off of what Pastor Dave thought he understood about the world. People practicing vampirism, people having Judas rituals, trying to kill their mom, people being in witches' covens. I mean, like, the whole entire experience was so shocking to him and so disturbing to him that he felt that perhaps he should take his friend's advice and maybe read that book, because things had gotten real weird real fast. Well, pan to a week later, and he gets a call from this woman, and she's desperately asking for help. She says, please help me. I'm about to be killed. I need help. Please help me. And he was used to receiving calls like this because he had helped people his whole ministry, people who are in dire straits, people who are having life-altering problems. He was not shocked by a call from a person in desperate need. That was kind of his business. So he assumed this was maybe a homeless woman, maybe somebody with a little bit of maybe a little mental illness, whatever. But he's going to go help her, buy her some groceries, give her a place to stay, sort of solve her most immediate needs. So she tells them where she's going to be. She says she's going to be hiding in the bushes at this certain spot. And he's like, strange, but okay. Pulls up. She jumps out of the bushes into the car and says, drive off, drive. They're going to kill us all. Okay. So he gets her in the car. They go to his house. Now, he had 3 other young men staying at his house, other people he was ministering to, and his wife. And he owned this great big sort of Victorian house. And they'd bought it with the express purpose of having enough room for all these people that they would have in and out of their home. Well, having her at the house wasn't like some kind of wild, break from their regular scheduled activities. Having the homeless in their house or people who were in various situations and needs, that was kind of par for the course. So giving her a place to stay wasn't wild and wacky. But it got wild and wacky because at 2:00 in the morning of that night, he hears screaming and carrying on. And then suddenly he sees this woman who he had been introduced to as Ramona. Ramona's being thrown down the stairs. She's screaming and saying that there's this entity who she's referring to as Nat, who is trying to hurt her. And they go through an absolute cage match. This woman is fighting something that no one can see. Pastor Dave's up, his wife's up, the 3 boys are up. Everyone's like, what in the world's happening? They have zero ability to deal with what's happening. They're trying to call on the name of the Lord. They're calling to Jesus Christ. They're praying. They're begging the Lord to intervene, and eventually the spirit is expelled from the room and everything quiets down. And they're just in complete shock. I mean, she was doing absolute battle with something they could not see. And this thing was throwing her around the room. And it was so frightening and so scary and something that the 5 of them had never witnessed. Well, Ramona gets up, dusts herself off, and says, thank you. I'll be going to bed now. Pastor Dave's like, well, we're happy to help, but what just happened? And she said, I was battling Nat. What do you mean? And he's like, what? She's like, you couldn't see him? All 5 of them are like, no, we don't know what you're talking about. Not Pastor Dave, not his wife, not the 3 boys. No one had seen what she was talking about. And she said, you can't see in the spiritual realm? I'm so really sorry for you. There's all kinds of entities, all kinds of things going on around. You can't see that? No. And she's like, I mean, have you never seen a horror movie? Don't you understand what the world's about? And Pastor Dave's like, well, we don't watch horror movies in this house, so no. And what was that about? And she's like, it's something that happens, but I'm going to go to bed because I'm really tired. That took a lot out of me. So she goes to bed. And Pastor Dave and his wife go to bed and the boys go to bed, but they lay awake thinking, what did we just experience? I mean, it was an absolute adrenaline rush, not in a good way, like in a I am terrified what just happened in my home kind of way. Well, the next night it happens again. And at 2 o'clock on the dot every night for a week, Ramona is being thrown down the stairs and they are all doing battle with Nat. And it's like, what in the world? So by the second time this happens, and it'll continue to happen, Pastor Dave's like, okay, you're not telling me something. Like, this is not, I've had a lot of people in my home. I've had a lot of needy people, a lot of people with various conditions. What is happening in my home at 2 o'clock in the morning? And she's like, that's the witching hour. Witching hour? What are you talking about? And she says that the witches do blood sacrifices from midnight to 2 o'clock. And then at 2 o'clock, if they've given enough blood to whatever entity it is they're sacrificing to, then that entity has to go do their bidding. And apparently people have been sacrificing to this demonic entity called Nat, who is a murder spirit, and he's coming to take her out. Well, it's not working because Pastor Dave and his wife are praying and doing battle with Nat every night with her. But Pastor Dave was like, how did this happen to you? What, like, you need to tell me what's happening, because you're staying in my home and I'm happy to have you in my home, but I need to know why every night for a week we've been up with this situation. And she's like, I dabbled in a little bit of witchcraft. And he's like, I don't know if you were dabbling, because if you were dabbling, that's like saying, Bloody Mary in the mirror a couple of times. It's like little kids and teenagers do dabbling, but, if you know all about like the covens and they're doing their blood rituals and they're sacrificing and then they're sending spirits to do their bidding, like that's more than just one time I went to a sleepover and somebody pulled out a Ouija board, which not great, but also not the same thing as somebody sending out murder spirits after a blood ritual sacrifice. So he feels like he's not getting the full picture from her, and it's because he's not. And he's feeling like there's a lot going on with her and a lot that's happening with her that is just super dark, but he can't get her to answer his questions. And she keeps blowing him off saying, yeah, one time I kind of like looked at a spell book or something, but he's not getting the real answers. And every night they're battling different spirits. One of the things that continues to happen is they are continually getting these Native American spirits that are coming to them. And, the Native Americans are very spiritual people. They're either worshiping the Great Spirit or they're worshiping all these other spirits. And, you see all these totem poles in North America. And these totem poles are depictions of the levels and the powers of all of these demonic entities. And there had been many Native American spirits that continued to come to them at night, and they were doing battle. And I mean, it was a strange mixture of all of these different demons coming to them. And he was doing research on all these demons and finding, all of these demonic names across the globe that kind of synced with each other. It was a learning curve that was real steep up at Pastor Dave's house. And again, this is a person who could not have been less interested or less curious about the spiritual world and spiritual warfare. Like, it just wasn't on his radar. He just was not one of those Christians that was clued in. Like, he knew about stories in the Bible where there was demonic oppression. He knew about the disciples and Jesus casting out demons, but it was just something he thought was like a biblical story, but not something we were currently dealing with. I mean, a very Western mindset of, if you have problems, that's probably something a psychiatrist needs to work out with you, or maybe you just need to get your medication adjusted, or, it's never a spiritual problem. It's always, you have a physical body. There's no spiritual realm that is ever inhibiting you in any way. And that's just kind of the way he was used to it. And that's the way I think a lot of churches deal with anything that seems a little off. It's not spiritual warfare. It's just you didn't take your meds today. And that's what the problem is. So for him, like, all of this is just like a bucket of cold water in his face, like every 5 minutes, because it just wasn't something that was in his purview. So every night we're battling different spirits, but lots of Native American spirits. And that's really important to this story. Well, on top of all the things that are going on, he has been invited and he'd agreed to do these series of talks at this family Bible camp. Well, that had all sounded like just fine, several weeks ago when he'd agreed to do it. But now he's up all night battling demons. And he's got this person who is so plagued, and Ramona has so many issues, that he knows he can't leave her with anyone. The only person he could possibly leave her with who would believe him when he tells them what's going on at the house is the guy who gave him that book originally. But that guy is doing mission work, somewhere in Tahiti. And so what is he supposed to do? He has no one who will believe him. Nobody in his church circle was up to date on their spiritual warfare. So he didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to get anybody to believe him. So he tried to cancel on this family camp that he had agreed to go and talk at. And the people who are running the camp, put him on a major guilt trip and were like, well, the Bible says that when you've agreed to do something, a good man doesn't go back on his word. And just being super legalistic and lame. And he's like, I think that you don't understand. I don't know how to convey to you that I'm in a situation with somebody that I'm trying to help who has life-altering problems and does not do well with others. And so that's why I'm asking you to let me out of this contract I have. No, a man does not go back on his word. So he says to them, all right, well, okay, here's the deal. I'm going to come to your camp since you won't let me out. But I'm not going to be able to really participate. I will do my talks like I've agreed to do. But then other than that, I'm really going to need to retreat. And I probably won't see you till the next talk. Well, they were none too pleased about this because they had asked Pastor Dave to come because they really wanted to hear about his ministry helping other people. That was the whole thing. We want to hear about how you're helping the orphans and widows, which is a very worthy mission, but also one that's way more palatable to the church at large. Like, that's something that we understand. Go help the widows and the orphans. We don't understand helping this woman in her demonic plague. So he didn't even tell them what the issue was with Ramona, just feeling that they were not a place that could receive that. And probably not if they were going to use such ridiculous guilt trips and tactics as a man never goes back on his word. But anyway, he agrees to go, but he does tell them, I'm going to bring my wife. I'm going to bring my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law, and I'm going to bring a guest. We are going to need to be in cabins as far away as it is possible to be from the rest of the group. And again, I will only see you when I'm giving my talks. So they begrudgingly allow him these things, but let him know they think it's pretty weird he's asking for this, and they're disappointed in him. But it is what it is, The night before they're supposed to go on this trip, all hell breaks loose in the house. It is a night of absolute fighting, praying, imploring that the Lord would help, casting out demon after demon. I mean, it's just like all hands on deck. Ramona is being thrown about. She is, by the end of it, in an absolute catatonic state from having dealt with the demons and the devils all night long. Everybody else is so tired, but they've got to get to this camp, and it's going to be a long drive, and they're already late. So they get in the car and they start driving. When they get to Nevada, Pastor Dave says, look, I've heard that they really are pretty lenient when it comes to speeding in this state. So we're going to test that. And I want to just blow through the state. I want to get to the camp. Everyone's tired. Everyone's exhausted. I want to go do my duties to this camp. And then, we got stuff to do. Pedal to the metal, and he is going 110 miles an hour down this interstate in Nevada. He sees a sign and says that they are about to enter into the territory of a certain Indian nation. And my apologies for not being able to remember the name of it. And he notes that it's going to be in about 10 miles. And he feels in his spirit the Lord telling him, hold on, because it's about to get really ugly. And the Lord was not lying to him, because as they're tearing down the road at 110 miles an hour, suddenly every door in the van blows open and all their seatbelts come off. The passenger door, the driver door, both sliding doors wide open, and nobody has a seatbelt on. And it is a scene of utter confusion and chaos. Most of the people in the car were asleep, having been up all night. There's stuff blowing out of the car, stuff blowing down the interstate. Everyone's screaming. Everyone's waiting. Oh my God, what's happening? And little Ramona, who's sitting in the passenger seat, is falling out of the car. Pastor Dave's trying to stop the car, grab Ramona, keep her in the car. Her feet are almost dragging the ground. He manages to stop the car. At which point Ramona, who knew there was a loaded gun in the car, takes the gun from under the seat and is about to use it when Pastor Dave grabs the gun from her. And he is just over it. He is over it with Ramona. I mean, his wife is like just super, super compassionate. Like we don't, we just need to love on Ramona. We just have to keep loving on Ramona. And he's like, I love her, but what is happening? She's not telling us the truth. She is not telling us what is happening. So he starts talking to Ramona, and she starts manifesting a voice that is not a female voice. It is this demonic spirit who is the power spirit of this specific Indian nation. This demon says that Ramona belongs to him. In fact, he says that's not even her name, and he laughs at Pastor Dave saying, you don't even know who she is. But a virgin sacrifice was committed, and that has given me the right and authority to take her and to kill her if I want to. She has left her coven, which means that she has wrecked the covenant that was made, and that means I now have rights to her, and I plan to kill her. And Pastor Dave just starts doing battle with this demon. And he says, if you have a right to kill her, then why didn't you do it? I was going 110 miles down the road. I had no idea an ambush was waiting. And you tried your best and she's still alive. So exactly how do you plan on killing her? Doesn't seem like you have the power to do it. And he sort of mocks his spirit in return. Well, Satan and all the demons, their greatest sin, and quite frankly, the greatest sin of humanity is pride. It's the mother of all sins. And this demon could not handle the being mocked. And he was furious with Dave and said, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill everybody in the car. And Dave's like, you just tried. It was an epic fail. Like, I didn't even know you were coming, but I don't need to know you're coming because Christ knew you were coming. So continue to try to do battle. It's not happening, and you can't have Ramona. He sends the spirit away saying, if you decide that you want to do battle with me, we can do that, but you will lose because you already lost. So if you want to be humiliated in front of all the other demonic spirits that you're supposed to be the head of, then good luck with that. We will wreck you. So you can stay around if you want to, but if I were you, I'd move on. It's a long conversation, and if you go and you watch Pastor Dave discuss the whole thing, he goes into detail, but essentially that's what it is, and then the demon leaves. But Dave is angry, because he knew all along he didn't know who this person was, this person who called herself Ramona. And he's very angry that he's been dragged into this, not because he wasn't willing to help her, but because it's putting the lives of his family in danger. Everyone was almost murdered. And it's like, I will help you till the ends of the earth. I will go to hell and back. And this is what he tells her. I will go to hell and back for you, but you can't keep lying to me, because it's not because I'm so butthurt that you are lying to me. It's because the truth will set you free. So I'm spinning my wheels here trying to help you if I don't even know what game we're playing. So she breaks down and she starts telling him all kinds of things. And she tells him, yes, I was given to that spirit in a virginal sacrifice. The virgin was my little sister. And she's crying and she says, my name's not really Ramona. She says, my name is LeVay. And Pastor Dave says, LeVay? But does that mean that you're related to Anton LaVey? The bald guy with the snake? She says, yes, that's my father. And that's not even a real snake. That is his power spirit, the spirit of Leviathan. And she says that she was committed to that demonic spirit in a ritual in which she had to kill her little sister with her father helping her. He made her cut out his heart and lots of other things that Pastor Dave doesn't go into. And I'm glad, because I don't think we need that in our heads, but that's wretched and horrible and horrifying enough. But her father and she did this sacrificial ritual. And the purpose and point was to combine the spirits of Luciferian Satanism with the power of the Native American spirits. And then together, these two demonic entities would form an even more powerful union through LeVay. And that was not all she was supposed to be doing. There is this entire thing that was created by Aleister Crowley called the Rituals of Defilement. Every year, for 7 years, on Halloween night, horrific things are done to a young woman with the intent purpose of making her such a filthy creature that she would be fit to be the bride of Satan. On the 7th Halloween, she's then given to Satan in a ritual to conceive what's called a moon child, and then this child will then go on to be the Antichrist. It is horrific. Horrific. I don't know what all of these rituals of defilement are, but these were written about in the book that had been given to Pastor Dave by his friend. And that's why Dave didn't want to read it, because gross. I don't want to read in detail all these things that are done. It was just too horrifying and too scary and too otherworldly. And so I don't even blame him. Like, I would have wanted to get rid of that book immediately. And I kind of would have been like, friend, what's the matter with you? Why are we needing to know about all this? But he did need to know about it because that is what had happened to LeVay. She had been groomed, more than groomed, as a child. Horrible things had happened to her as a child. And then when she became of age, every year on Halloween, there was going to be another thing done to her in these rituals of defilement. And she'd gone through 6 of them already. And that upcoming Halloween was going to be the final ritual. That's why she wanted to leave the coven, because she said she'd kill herself first before they ever did that to her. Well, she's mentions how she wants to leave this coven, right? And she starts saying that she had attempted to leave the coven, but that as she's trying to leave, there was an attempted murder on her life, and that she was beaten by a baseball bat by her daughter, and that she had been thrown into a river, but that she had lived because angels had dragged her body on shore. Now, where have we heard this story before? Could it be from the girl in the plexiglass cage who was a vampire drinking people's blood? I mean, this story is wild. And Pastor Dave's just sitting there slack-jawed like, what? I mean, there's just so many points of confirmation for him all along the way. First, there's the book with the rituals of defilement. Then he meets a woman in a plexiglass cage, a 14-year-old girl who has tried to kill her mother, who does a Judas ritual on her mother and beats her with a baseball bat. Then he meets a woman a week later who is running away from a witch's coven, having been dragged out of a river. And who should that woman be but the daughter of Anton LaVey? And that woman is the mother of the girl in the plexiglass cage. What? I mean, the story just gets weirder and weirder and weirder. But we're not done yet. Pastor Dave is beyond astounded, but relieved that he's finally getting the truth about who this woman is and the depth of evil that she was involved in. Like, it's starting to make sense. Like, okay, this is why we're doing battle every night for this woman's soul, because of all of the sacrifices and the decades that they'd put into this woman. And this was at the beginning of June. Well, October's coming up, and they're not about to let this LeVay go. Absolutely not. They are not about to let her out of their clutches. So in acts of absolute desperation, they're trying to grab her back and bring her back into the fold so that they can finish what they started 7 years ago. Well, in the course of this conversation, LeVay says to Pastor Dave, well, Anton knows all of this, so I'm just going to let you know now that things are going to get even worse than they have been. And he's like, how does Anton know? And she says, well, Anton exists in a spiritual dimension. And everything that I'm saying, he has the ability to read my thoughts, and he knows what I'm saying. So you should expect trouble. Well, Pastor Dave was pretty cavalier about it, because he's like, yeah, well, I just met trouble on the road going 110 miles an hour and I'm okay. And she's like, well, I'm glad the Lord's giving you courage, but it's going to get ugly. Well, it does. Pastor Dave goes and does his church ministry family camp, and then they go home. Anton LaVey is not about to give up this person who's invested all kinds of time and resources into, as he sees it. And he begins sacrificing animals on the church lawn. At one point, he's sacrificing a llama on the church lawn. He's calling in threats of violence. He's saying that he's going to hurt all the kids in the children's ministry. I mean, like, all kinds of stuff. It is like from June until October is an absolute onslaught on Pastor Dave's church. But they keep forging ahead because they know that they have God on their side. And the scary thing is that Anton LaVey has the ability to astral project. Now, most of you have probably heard that term before. And the concept of astral projection is something that is really big in occult movements, where it's this idea that you can leave your body and go forward into the world and into other realms. You can find yourself basically traveling to another place. Well, that is a pretty, I don't want to say well-known, because like not everybody knows about astral projection, but you may have heard of that before. That's a phenomenon that many people who have dabbled in the occult, Eastern mysticism, are familiar with and may even have experienced. What was new and what was a newer concept to me was the idea that there are people who are like Anton LaVey, who are so deep in evil that they can astral project, and they're not just going off into some place, they're going off into people. So Anton LaVey had gone into his daughter Ray and would speak through her to Pastor Dave. And every night he would show up, mock Pastor Dave, mock their efforts to save her, and was basically, we will get her. He spent a great deal of his time blaspheming God and making a mockery of the idea that Christ could save Ray Ray, that she was too far gone, and that the idea that they were even attempting to save her was so laughable as to be pathetic. Night after night after night, Anton LaVey would animate this body. And the pastor would try to cast him out, and Anton LaVey said, you don't have the power to do that because I have a fleshly body. I can go back to my body at any time. In this strange and weird world where there's astral projection, there's a silver cord that connects the person's spirit to their body. So when you astral project out, you cannot do it forever. You have to come back because that silver cord, which is almost like an umbilical cord, it's called a silver cord, will begin to disintegrate over time. So you've got to get back. And the people who are more and more entrenched in this evil and demonic weirdness can stay out of their body for longer periods of time, but it's not an eternal amount of time you can stay out. You got to get back to your body. Otherwise, if you become severed from your body because the cord disintegrates or a spiritual situation will occur in which that cord is severed, then you are then just a nebulous body and you will then be assumed into the demonic clan. So if there's any question on how is Anton speaking through his daughter to Pastor Dave, that's the spiritual explanation. But more importantly too is she had what is referred to in these really dark circles as an internal organic fetish. And what that means is not a fetish in the way that we would think of that word. A fetish is something that is a portal to the evil world. And there's lots of different kinds of these. There can be a fetish that you put on like a table or something. So like your tarot card reader or, your witch who's doing spells or whatever, like the voodoo person. They may have something in your home that is a fetish. It's a physical object that allows spirits to use as a portal. There's ink fetishes, which are specific tattoos that you can get on your body, also like an invitation and a portal to your being. And then there are these internal organic fetishes, organic material that is placed into a body to then give any demon access to the body. Ray LeVay had a tendon in her wrist that had been placed there by her father, Anton LaVey. This tendon had originally belonged to Anton LaVey because it had been placed in his body by Aleister Crowley. So Aleister Crowley put a tendon in his arm from Anton LaVey, then that tendon went into Ray LeVay. So that was why he said, I always have a portal into her body because I have an invitation. Part of me is in her, and so I can always go. So there was no casting this entity out by the laws of the spiritual realm. Sadly, they had been on the hunt to find a doctor who would take that tendon out of Ray Ray's arm, and no doctor would do it. They even went to Christian doctors, and Christian doctors were like, that's weird, wacky, what are you talking about? We're not getting involved in that. And it's really sad that people are so limiting in their ability to comprehend the world. You can go in and get the healthy breast cut off a 16-year-old girl because she says she's a boy, but you can't get a tendon removed from somebody's arm because they say that it was put in them as ritual magic. I mean, it's like, if you're going to do one thing, why can't you do the other? How does it make sense to you to cut off the breast of a healthy woman, but you can't take a tendon out of somebody's arm because they say they want it done? Anyway, that's a bit of a tangent. Back to the story. So that is why Anton LaVey was able to speak through his daughter. And he would come, like I said, every night and cause major chaos. Halloween's fast approaching. And they had decided that the night of Halloween from 9 o'clock till midnight, they would just pray. They would pray because they knew that at midnight, there would be all sorts of forces of evil trying to come and get Ray Ray so they could finish this long ritual of defilement that was supposed to be completed on that specific Halloween. They get all their groups together. The group has been fasting, they're praying, and that night around 9:30 or whatever, Ray LeVay comes out to Pastor Dave. Pastor Dave is sitting on the porch. He's watching the front door. His wife's watching the back, and they've got the prayer meeting going on in the living room. She says to Pastor Dave, it's okay, everything's going to be fine. She had asked Dave to be her adopted father, and she was an adult, and, he had said at first, can you do that? And she's like, yes, I looked into it. Will you be my new father? And he'd agreed to it. So she always called him Dad. So she said to him, Dad, everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. We've got this. And, she was saying some little words of comfort to him. And he's like, yeah, I know. We've got it. But then she said this curious statement. She said, well, I'm going to head down to 7-Eleven. I'm going to get some coffee. at 9 o'clock at night, also 7-Eleven, like, you know what tonight is. You know that we have a prayer meeting going on. This is like, we're praying for forces of protection around this home. We're trying to help you. Why would I let you just go out in the middle of the night to 7-Eleven to go get some coffee? Like, that doesn't even make sense. And there had been so many demonic voices and so many weirdnesses that had happened and been conveyed through Ray that her Pastor Dave says, let me see your eyes, because he's thinking she's not thinking clearly. Something's doing her thinking for her. Her eyes seemed fine. Her voice was fine, but he told her, you need to go inside. So she goes inside. And then a couple of minutes later, all these squad cars pull up, and she has come downstairs. She's laughing. She's got Anton's voice coming out of her throat. And she starts accusing Pastor Dave of all kinds of evil, like the worst things you could accuse somebody of. She is just going down the list. And she's screaming and she's cursing and she's begging the police to save her. She's saying this man has violated her in all these horrific ways. The police, I mean, what are they going to believe? That Anton LaVey is speaking through this woman and that she is that very night about to be given as the bride of Satan in this last ritual of defilement? Like, what is Pastor Dave supposed to say to these police? They're going to be like, cuckoo, let's lock you up too. He knowing he's innocent, doesn't really even think about how he has to defend himself to these police. So he goes to grab LeVay because she's like ranting and raving and screaming and kicking. And they think, oh, look, the predator is going after the victim again. So they all pull their guns on him and he's down on the floor and they're going to handcuff him and they're going to take him off and they're going to arrest him that night. Well, one of the police officers' wife went to Pastor Dave's church. And so he's like, just a minute, let me talk to Pastor. So he takes Pastor aside. And Pastor Dave knows this guy's skeptical and isn't going to believe anything he has to say. And he doesn't really even know how to explain it to this guy. Because he knows how crazy it sounds. I mean, it's a crazy story. And so he does tell the guy, he's like, you don't understand. If you remove her from this house, she will die in a satanic ritual tonight. And the police is like, yeah, okay. And, Pastor, I'd keep that one to myself if I were you. And, tells him like, look, you're a nice guy. I'll try to do what I can for you. But I'm going to tell you right now, we just had a grown adult call from this house accusing you of all kinds of things. So you might want to tell me this is a complicated situation. It doesn't look complicated from where I'm standing. It looks real freaking simple. You hurt this woman. She finally got the gumption to call. And you're looking at some major charges. So Pastor Dave doesn't know what to do. But luckily for him, he had a dear, dear friend who was the head of a trauma ministry that the two of them had started together. His friend, Louie, would take calls from 911 when there was a domestic disturbance and would send out a trauma specialist. And this trauma specialist could talk to both the perpetrator and the victim, kind of get the whole story. Well, his friend Louie had heard the call go over, and so he arrived. He was able to talk to the police. He knew the story about Pastor Dave, and he knew a little bit about what was going on with Ray. So he tells the police, this woman is 5150. She has been for decades of her whole life. She is not well. She's not mentally capable or competent. This man over here is a beloved member of the community. He spent decades of his life doing things for the community. Who are you really going to believe? You're going to throw this man's reputation because this woman who's crazy and has been crazy for a long time wants to come to you and make all these claims? I mean, just listen to her as she's snarling in a male's voice. So the police had worked with Louie a lot, respected him, didn't realize that Louie and Pastor Dave had the connection of being the ones who had created that trauma ministry in the first place. But they respected Louie and said, you know what, Louie, we worked with you a lot. We respect your opinion. Okay, we'll let the pastor off right now, but we're keeping an eye on him. And they tell Pastor, okay, we respect you. We're accepting of what this trauma specialist says. We respect him. So we're going to let you go. We're not going to arrest you tonight. But if you have anything else to do with this victim, if we find out you went near her, did anything with her, continue a relationship with her, you can expect to be arrested. Well, what's Pastor Dave supposed to do? He's got to protect her that night, so he makes no promises to the police that he's not going to be involved, but they take her away in the squad car. Throughout all of this, she manages to escape from the squad car, and she gets a ride to the place where the demonic ritual is going to take place. They knew where it was going to be taking place. It was at this broken down motel that they referred to as the Hell Motel. And Ray escapes from the police and is led, obviously, by Anton back to this place where this ritual is going to be taken place. He, of course, Anton LaVey is there, and all of his witches and warlocks, they're all there. They're all getting ready to prepare for this night of all nights, this evil debauchery, this absolute pits of hell celebration where they have a wedding between Ray and the devil. Pastor Dave has gotten word from Louis, who was with the police, that Ray has escaped. He knows exactly where she's going. So he shows up at the motel. He has told everybody back at the house, you need to pray, you need to pray, you need to pray. And he had gotten a message from the Lord that what they needed to pray specifically for was that the silver cord from Anton LaVey would be severed and that he would not be able to get back into his body, that he would do what is referred to in these circles as bounce and not be able to re-enter his body. Many of the people in the prayer circle were concerned about this because they said, but if we do that, that means that we've been complicit in somebody losing their life. And they were a little bit nervous about praying this thing. He said, it's either Ray's death or it's Anton's death. Somebody's going to die tonight. Ray is trying desperately to break free from these clutches. Our God is going to redeem her. Anton has no desire to be redeemed. He has spent night after night after night blaspheming in the worst ways our Lord and Savior. So I have been instructed that we pray that the silver cord is cut. So everyone starts praying. They're praying. He's praying. His wife and Louis are praying. And he goes and he pulls up to the motel. He gets out of his car. He has his hands raised. He's praying that silver cord is cut. He sees the doors bust open and out runs Ray. She's screaming, help me, daddy, help me, daddy. He goes and he grabs her. They get in the car and they drive off. They get back to the house. They're praising God because Ray says that while she was in there, she sees the silver cord cut. She sees his spirit unable to get back into his body. He bounces and he says, oh no, something terrible has gone wrong. And that's it. And of course, in those scenarios, the spirit now no longer has any body. So he is then enveloped, that spirit, which is now just sort of drifting because it has no silver thread. You are no longer allowed to enter other people's bodies without that silver thread, without that silver cord. Now it's just the spirit that is floating about, and now it will be subsumed into the spiritual realm and taken off to the pits of hell. And Ray LeVay is now seemingly free. But as they're all rejoicing and excited and so happy that she's finally free, suddenly her eyes go completely red and become serpentine. And she starts speaking in the most evil, horrible voice. And she says to Pastor Dave, you murderer, you killed the Black Pope. Pastor Dave says, so his silver cord was cut. And the evil spirit says, you know that it was. Pastor Dave says, who are you? He says, I'm the spirit of Leviathan, the spirit the one that looked like a snake around Anton LaVey's body, though the snake he always carried. This was that spirit that was speaking out of Ray LeVay. The pastor says to him, you have no authority over Ray LeVay, and you know it. And after everything that had happened, and God only knows what was going on in the spiritual realm, that demonic presence just evaporated. It had nothing to say. It had no authority. Christ had won. And I think the thing that's amazing is that they had done battle night after night after night after night with lesser spirits, but they were young in their understanding. Pastor Dave and his wife and all the people helping, they had no context for what they were doing. They were battling in ignorance, but their ignorance did not impede them from doing great works for God. They'd done battle with lesser spirits, but as their knowledge grew, as the Lord revealed more things to them, they began to be more and more aware of the power that they had been given in Christ. So they had the power to say to this horribly demonic Leviathan spirit, evil of all evil, you have no power over Ray LeVay. Because every covenant that had ever been made was broken by the blood of Christ. Every evil thing that had ever been done to her, every promise and covenant and sacrifice that had been done to bring her to darkness was broken with the blood of Christ. And before she had come to know Christ, she had the markings in the spiritual realm of all these things that had been done to her. The demons would say, she has been marked with the blood of the virginal sacrifice. She has been marked for this. We can see the marking on her body that she belongs to us. The much greater sign in the spiritual realm is the blood of Christ. We are marked with the blood of Christ. Those who have been redeemed, who have accepted the sacrifice that he's given to us, who know that we, beyond any doubt, are flawed and failed and are completely and totally disfigured by sin. When we accept the sacrifice that Christ did for us, when we say, I cannot make it on my own, Lord God, help me, help me, help me. When we accept the sacrifice that he's given to us, we are then washed in the blood of Christ. Every sin we've committed is forgiven. Every sin against us is washed away. There's no marking left for the devil. And so there was no power. There's no power that they had over this poor girl who had been brought into life through satanic rituals and who had sex magic had brought her to life. She had been conceived in an act of sex magic for the express purpose of then bringing the Indian nations and the Luciferian Satanism to a greater power, was then going to be used and abused to then be raised as the bride of Satan. If ever there was a person who you would think was just too used and abused for redemption, that person doesn't exist. Christ's blood covers everything. And this story was just so wild and crazy, but so wonderful, because we read in the Bible that Christ's blood is a marker to all the demonic realm, that we are his, that we are saved, that we are whole, that nothing that has ever been done to us or anything we've ever done to anybody else is beyond forgiveness. We read that, but it's hard to believe it. You hear a story like this, and all of those things that you read in the Bible, certainly, it takes on flesh and meaning. So in all of this, I just want to say that LeVay has gone on to get married. She has changed her name. Her name is now Deborah Joy. She took on the last name of Brian, like Pastor Brian. She looks to him as her father on earth. Obviously, the Lord is her heavenly father. She has children. She is a joyful, whole being. Of course, there were years you don't go through a childhood like that and you're just immediately better. But she is a happy, whole person. She has children and a husband who loves her. She has gone on to be fully redeemed in this life, but also in the next. And I just think it is the most amazing, mind-blowing, incredible story. I want to bring more stories like this on this channel because these are the stories that matter. We talk about a lot of things that are silly and whatever, but these are the stories that really matter because these are the stories that are real. They seem like the crazy stories, the ones that aren't real, the ones that are, that's a fairy tale. It isn't though, because the world is a lot weirder than you think, but God loves you a lot more than you know. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I'll see you again soon. Bye.